Howdy folks, how's it going? Quick video today. I'm in the brewery. I'm just got water coming up the tap on the Pliny the Elder, which will be, the video will come up on Friday for brew day. But just this morning, I just want to show you what's happened here. This is quite interesting. I'm washing some yeast, some Lutra, and some 3470, which come off the last batch of the Aussie Lager. So before I get into that, big shout out to all Little John's Patreons, particularly newest Patreon, Stephen Hanley. Stephen, welcome along. Good to have you on board, mate. If you're interested in Patreon, the link's down below. Have a look what it's about. Other than that, hit the subscribe button if you aren't subscribed, or give me a thumbs up. Hit some buttons anyway. But as I said, I've brewed the Loaded Dog Lager a few weeks back, which you'll have seen. I split that batch with some 3470 at lager temp and with a dry pack of Lutra, which I brewed at ambient temperatures, so I can test what the differences are. Now, I bottle / keg these up 2 days ago. Today's Tuesday and Sunday. And last night I sat down to wash the yeast. And I got a bit of a surprise. I've done the usual finger punch myself. I've got a bunch of jars here. I got my jars out. I got myself some nice boiled water. I sanitised the jars with boiling water. Let the boiling water cool. I poured off the yeast cake, and the yeast cake I just drew straight off the bottom of the both fermenters. These are brewed in my 15 litre plastic fermenters with no pressure or anything like that, just a standard straight up ferment. And I just used a little bit of beer that was in the bottom of the fermenter to stir up the yeast cake, put that into the jars. And I've let that sit for a bit, and I just added some water to that. Now, gave it a stir up as I normally would, and let it go. Now, first thing I noticed was when I, before I went to start, was that there was a lot less of the Lutra in the jar than there was of the W3470, which was, I didn't really pay any great amount of attention to it. Well, that's just different yeast. But I washed them, and I sat here, this was last night, and I sat here while I dawned. I was just dancing around on Facebook and whatnot, and I was waiting for it to do its first sort of drop out so I could start taking first lot of stuff off the top. And inside of about, maybe 8-10 minutes, the Lutra just dropped to the bottom of the jar. And there was really nothing left in suspension to draw off like you normally would. So I looked at it, fucking tried a second time, nah, done it again. Even leaving it just for a couple of minutes and taking the stuff off the top, it was still like, there was really nothing there. So I just left it, and I'll show you why. Now I went through the W3470 and I continued and I watched it as per normal. So I've gone through the 3470. I've washed it pretty hard because I've already got one vial in the fridge. So I only need to keep one vial, so I didn't need a real lot, so I did give it a fairly good wash. And what I ended up with was these couple of jars. Now these are the big, whatever they are, 600 gram Makona jars. Compare a Coke can, yeah. They're the big jars, they're not the little jar. So that's the last little trouble I took off, and I did let that sit a little bit long because there's still a layer of yeast in there. I could have got a little bit more out of it, but And there's another jar. So that's the second. That's the second rinse, and that's the first rinse. So I've got 3 jars of Trub like that off the 3470. This is the final yeast. You can see there's not a lot there, but that's very, very, very nice clean yeast, which is all I need to keep, which is no problem. So this is all what come off. This is all fairly standard. This is what normal stuff you'd expect to see. And as I said, if I'd been a little bit more careful with that, with the third wash, I would have got maybe another half of that amount of yeast again in that final jar. This is the jar of the Lutra. Now, as I said, this didn't get washed in the end. This is exactly what come off the fermenter. This is exactly how it come off. Stirred the beer up, drew it off, let it sit. That's what I got. About twice as much as the W3470, but maybe a third. That's the jar of Trub. I've got more Trub in 3 jars than I've got there of just yeast, and this is clean yeast. There, it's going to be a little bit hard to show right now, but I will try to. I'll take this water off. So this is about to go into the vial. I've got cool boil water sitting in the jug, so I've got some water I can use. But let me grab the camera. So this is what we've got, and that is just clean yeast. There's barely a grey tinge in there. It's pretty amazing. So yeah, that's blame me out a little bit, because it's like, how's it a Trub? Because that's basically what's going on. There is effectively no Trub in there. This is exactly the same beer. Just split the wort in half, put it in 2 different fermenters. Same amount, 11 litres of Australian lager. Fermented for the same amount of time. Both fermented down to the same final gravity. And barely any trouble on the Kvike. Very weird. So that's obviously going to make saving it very easy, because you don't need the rinse. So I'm just going to take that down. I'm going to drop that straight into tiny little bit of boiling water, just so I've got some cover for it, and to help get it off this jar, because it's clinging on there pretty good. It's thick and creamy. Don't worry about that. You can see there it's barely wanting to slide off the jar. It looks fantastic. Look, as far as yeast go, that's that's a nice looking creamy yeast cake there. So does it mean anything? Probably not. I just thought it was an interesting observation from the yeast. Now I don't know if that's a standard thing with Kvike. I've never. I did watch the Aussie Lager, and I don't recall it being like that. I do seem to think it was more like a normal normal yeast, but this Lutra has dropped, and it did the same in the beer. It took a little while to actually do it. Once it had finished, it dropped real quick. It dropped quick, and it dropped really clear. So it's obviously a characteristic of the yeast that it does drop hard. So which is one reason I think that some people like using it. But it's definitely simple to keep if you want to. If you don't want to worry about bloody keeping packets on hand, you know, you buy basically one packet, and there's, yeah, plenty of use there for two repitches, no problem at all, possibly even 3. But I don't know how the Lutra performs underpitched. I know they use, like Voss, I know particularly they recommend it, you know, underpitching is not a bad thing. If you like the flavours of Voss. But yeah, very interesting. So I'm going to get these into some vials now anyway. That's not, you don't need to be watching me bloody doing that. But I just thought it might be interesting for someone at home. And I didn't really have anything much else ready to go. I got a little bit blindsided. Normally I just would have sat down yesterday and knocked out a video. But daughter arrived yesterday. She was due to come tomorrow. She arrived yesterday. So that threw things out a little bit. So this is today's video. So that's it, guys. There will be a tasting video on this fella. Will be pre-Christmas because I'll be going away at Christmas, so I want to get a taster on this one probably in a couple of weeks. So we'll see how the yeast compare taste-wise after seeing how they compare washing-wise. So all good, guys. So till I catch up with you, thank you to everyone for your support, Patreon subscribers, all that stuff. Hit the like button. So till I see you again, we're brewing beer, drinking beer, or talking beer. I've got nothing to toast you with. Sorry, it's still bloody. It's only 11 o'clock in the morning. Good brewing.